Stay tuned for tonight's adventure with the Fat Man.
Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I hope it's good to be where you are because I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Baltimore Fats, and this is Blood on the Streets. Yeah! All right, guys. All right, so we're going to pick this one up right where we left off because things are about to get weird quick. Right? It's the winter of 1870, and Amy Darcy Wetmore here is telling us of the tableau party that the ladies have asked Professor Rabien to throw for them. Right? It's something new and exciting. This is the first time this kind of thing was going to be done in Baltimore. And so the ladies were delighted. And the delighted ladies were Mrs. William Reed and Mrs. Frank Elder. They assisted Professor Rabien, and the idea was carried out. So let's meet the ladies real quick here. And I think it's interesting that they're only referred to by their married names or associated with their husbands. And so a quick search of the gatekeepers, I could really come up with nothing on Frank Elder. Right? But if this William Reed is who I think he is, then he's one of the oldest families in Maryland. Right? Because I found this from a William Reed genealogy page that goes all the way back to at least 1653. And it shows that there was a George Reed going back this far that had dealings with Captain Cornwallis. So really some of the founding fathers of Maryland here. So I think it's a tantalizing clue, who this Mrs. William Reed was, that I can trace a William Reed this far back into Maryland's history. The potential of William Reed to be somebody of significant importance in the story of Baltimore and Maryland is there, right? And so, but she and her friend Mrs. Elder here, and I so badly want her first name to be Katie. That would make me so happy, right? So they assisted the good professor here, right? And now from here, Amy Darcy Wetmore only talks about one tableau that happens at this winter of 1870 Professor Rabelais party, right? Just one, right? The first group, and it was Naobi and her children being slaughtered by Apollo and Diana, right? Are you kidding me? Children being slaughtered is the first tableau. All right, so now if you're unfamiliar with the story of Naobi and her children, the story of Naobi and the murder of her children is a cautionary tale warning against the dangers of hubris. Naobi is a prideful mother who considers her brood to be the fairest on heaven and earth, which is impossible, of course, because Apollo and Diana were clearly the fairest among heaven and earth, right? And so to punish Naobi for her insolence, Leto, the mother of Apollo and Diana, who's Artemis in the original Greek, orders them to hunt down and murder all of Naobi's children. Apollo goes after the boys and Diana goes after the girls, and a lot of kids are killed. I mean, something like 14 to 21, depending on the variation of the myth that you're getting, right? I mean, it's just absolutely astonishing that this would be the lead-off tableau for Professor Rabien's party for the ladies. And it's a fundraiser. As we talked about, all of these things were fundraisers, and we're going to get more into that as we go as well. So, but yeah, dead children. It's a very strange and gruesome way to kick off your tableau party, don't you think? But I think it's even stranger still that this is the only mention from this party, right? Because Amy Darcy Wetmore, she skips right ahead to the following winter, where these tableaux were again given, with others added, right? And the first one that they add is the rape of the Sabines. So what is happening with these tableau parties? The first one is Niobe's children being slaughtered, right? And then followed up by the rape of the Sabines. This is absolutely incredible. And so the rape of the Sabines is the story of how Rome survived its earliest years through conquest. Now, I don't know if this is historically accurate story, if this is something that they say actually really happened or not, or is this a mythology? I don't know. But so the story goes that in the early days, Rome was growing very quickly, but maybe not in a sustainable way, because it was a male-dominated city, populated mostly by the criminal element, right? And some things never change, right? So Romulus, the founder of Rome, sensing the obvious, right, he launches Operation Rome Needs Women, in which he invites all of Rome's neighbors to a festival and games in honor of Neptune. And once everyone was settled in and enjoying the games and the show, Romulus gives the high sign, and his centurions, or whatever they were, they grab all the women and start attacking the defenseless men. And so the end result of all of this was that Rome ends up conquering all its surrounding neighbors and launches the Roman Empire. And so this is the new story that was added to the tableau, the one that began with the systematic ritual slaughter of children. Where is it? And so the first tableau was about the ritualistic slaughter of children, right? And then the second was about the abduction of women. And so now this is absolutely crazy, because we have to keep in mind that not even 20 years earlier than this, we have the publication of Priests, Prisons for Women, right? And this was published in 1854. And so now I don't know if you remember this, but Mary and I discovered this pamphlet in the main branch Enoch Pratt Library on Cathedral Hill, right? And, it was published in 1854, right? Printed by Sherwood and Company. Sherwood? Are you kidding me? This is just unbelievable. I didn't even notice that when I set up this picture. Oh my God. The Sherwood Forest. That is crazy. All right, and so it's byline here. Where is it? And now this book is freely available on the internet for download or whatever, right? But Priests, Prisons for Women, or a consideration of the question whether unmarried foreign priests ought to be permitted to erect prisons into which, under pretense of religion, to seduce or entrap or by force compel young women to enter, and after they have secured their property, keep them in confinement and compel them as their slaves to submit themselves to their will under the penalty of flogging or the dungeon, right? In 12 letters, and written to T. Parkin Scott, right? Member of the Baltimore Bar and Vice Consul of the Pope, right? Written by Andrew B. Cross. And we have this quote here: having no friends to whom I can rely, I throw myself on the public for protection. And this is Miss Olivia Neal, when she escaped from the convent in Baltimore, August 1839. So as I was saying, a real problem in Baltimore, and I think maybe perhaps it could be in poor taste that this tableau party would have the rape of the Sabines, in which women are abducted. And we're going to talk about who participated in this tableau and what was happening, right? But anyway, just to close this out, because it's really incredible and just another sign, another clue how on the right track I have to be with some of this stuff, right? Because now, of course, when I took these pictures 3 years ago, or whenever Mary and I went to the library that day, I had no clue that Sherwood Forest was going to play the kind of role that it would play, or what would be happening with all of that. It is just unbelievable the way these things just keep popping in here and connecting. It's just nuts. All right, so now let's get back to the tableau party of the winter, I have to assume, of 1871, right? The following winter. And the rape of the Sabines. And so what is Rabelais getting at with these tableaus? What kind of message is he sending? Because he's clearly sending a message, right? I mean, there just has to be one. And we're going to get more into what the other tableaus and everything were down the line as well, right? But so what could the message be? And what does it say about the players in these tableaus? Because this is where the story takes that leap from beyond the weird into the very strange and very current, and it really is kind of freaking me out a little bit. I'm not going to lie about it. All right. And so with the rape of the Sabines here, it says that Mr. William C. Pennington took the part of Romulus. All right, Romulus being the founder of Rome. And so William C. Pennington here, I'm going to call him Billy from here on out. Billy must have thought very highly of himself to play the part of Romulus. And I like to imagine Billy Boy here prancing around the party in his toga or whatever, and abducting the ladies to the delight, to the merriment and amusement of all. I'm sure it was a nice, fun game that these super elite people were playing. And so when I first looked at this way back in, October now, right? This was the point I realized I had a real story here, one that connected very deeply into the Mud City Paradigm Puzzle Tree and the story of Baltimore. I mean, we're about to get all Baltimore up in this, because when I first saw the name Pennington, the first thing that came to my mind was the death of Douglas Thomas Jr. And so Douglas Thomas Jr. here was the focus of the Dead Man's Curve episode of Baltimore when I briefly got that thing off the ground, right? And he was the architect of the new Baltimore and Ohio Railroad building that opened in 1906 for the Jubilee. It's the building that has the Lady of Elka, or Inanna, on the side of it. And it's one of the buildings that really first sort of opened my eyes as to how sort of deep this story, this Baltimore thing could go when I first started looking at it. I happen to believe that it's one of the most important buildings in American history. Yeah, I can't really back that up with anything, but it's certainly something that I believe. Right? And so, all right, today it's the Hotel Monaco, I think it's called. Right? But in 1915, I believe it was, he was killed in an automobile accident. And to me, it's something that always sort of reeked of foul play. And the Baltimore Sun says that it is believed that his car went into the ditch when he tried to make a sharp turn at the curve in the road at that place, which is on Bologna Avenue. And so in the Dead Man's Curve episode, I talk about how Bologna was one of the Sibyllines, right? Of these Sibylline books that keep getting referred to time and again, right? And it says that off of this road, at that point, a private road makes off into the property of Harry Pennington. And so, of course, I believe that this was no accident, right? And there's foul play involved, and that his death was a ritual sacrifice. And now this always stayed with me because, of course, I used to curse the name Pennington twice a year as a New England Patriots fan because of Chad Pennington, who used to be the quarterback for the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins. And I'm going to have to get a picture of Chad in here for this. Was it the Chad? It was the Chad, right? But so that always was kind of funny to me, the name Pennington in this. But of course, the Mud City story took me away from Baltimore and the Jubilee, and I haven't gotten back to it. But now to see the name William C. or Billy Boy Pennington as adopting the role of Romulus, I thought maybe there could be some connection there, right? Because that's what happened. I saw the name Pennington and I went straight to Douglas Thomas, right? Was murdered on Pennington property, right? That's where the sacrifice took place. Right? And now I have a William C. Pennington performing the role of Romulus at a tableau party in 1870, bringing it, like I said, get right back into Baltimore. It's just blowing my mind the way that these two stories connected in an instant, right? And so now I could not find any direct relation to that Pennington, Harry Pennington, whose property Douglas Thomas died on. But that land off Bologna Avenue there is close to Ruxton, and that's big money Baltimore. And as I dug into the Pennington name now for the first time, I realized that the Pennington name is one of the oldest in Maryland and in Baltimore. All right, just as William Reed was as well. And so it's with the Pennington name that this story takes on a very morbid and very modern component when on December 16th of 2020, Baltimore City police officer Kiana Holly was ambushed and shot while she sat in her police cruiser, which was parked where? At the 4400 block of Pennington Avenue. Now, there's a whole lot about this story that raises flags for me objectively. First is her last name, Holly. Right? I think we all know the part that Holly plays in the deception. Right? So it's just very interesting to see that her last name is Holly. But there's a whole lot more. Like here in the city, this story had a bunch of weird drama going on around it, right? They offered up this huge reward overnight for any information, but they apparently knew who the perps were, and those two guys turned themselves in less than 48 hours, I think. Right? So kind of wonder what happened to that $100,000 that they put out there. Did Officer Holly's family see that money? I don't know. But these two guys who turned themselves in admitted to shooting Officer Holly. They also killed someone else that night. So they have 2 homicides counted against them. I mean, the whole drama of her shooting and death, and she died, I think, the day after Christmas. She lived for like a week or more after her injuries in critical condition, but then did finally die. This whole story plays out very strangely to me. And though I will admit that, I didn't follow it all that closely, it just really piqued my interest because I couldn't believe my dumb luck. I mean, yet again, Mud City makes a connection from speculation over Douglas Thomas's death, which took place on Pennington property as a possible ritual sacrifice, to what, for all intents and purposes, appears to be the ritualistic sacrifice of a Baltimore City police officer on Pennington Avenue. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. I mean, is this just apophenia running wild? I don't know, but because it certainly feels like I stepped in something, right? And so that's where we'll pick it up in the next foundation-crushing episode of Baltimore Fat's House of Wax with the Penningtons. Remember, guys, just because you don't know the truth doesn't mean you can't have fun with the lies. Until the next one, cheers.